Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Nice to see you and talk to you.
Yeah, the same. I've been listening to your music since like way, way back, like the early 2000s, I think, when you started Route 70. So that's, and I want to ask you some things about stuff you did. I saw that you were like really active despite everything happening last year. And
Doing my best,
Yeah.
I mean, like coming up with little strategies to take a few. I mean, just to keep the spirit up high. That's to be active in being a brass player also means you have to play every day, otherwise your chops go down and the whole. So, and plus, the thing is, I mean, if it's possible to do something, I said to myself, I'm going to do it. If it's allowed, I'm going to do it because, the so-called lockdown is, well, it's not really a lockdown if you consider how many people go to work. I mean, of course, now you have the home office situation. In Switzerland, it's even obligatory. But the factories, they're still working, and there's a lot of. So I figured doing a recording with like 4 people with a distance of 2 meters, it's not a problem. It's not, so, and, I also look at what can you do at these times? You can do recordings, you can write music, and you can maybe do something like some storage, whatever, like rewriting or like, getting things in order, that kind of thing. And that, I mean, I'm definitely a person who needs some project. If there's no project, no nothing, my energy is going down.
I'm the same. I just keep piling on projects instead of just like But I love that with you, like, because you're like, when one checks your discography as a leader, it's just mind blowing and as a composer. But I wanted to ask you like about Bright Lights, the new solo one. I listened to it, solo trombone, which I know the German kind of trombone tradition, Albert Mangelsdorf and Johannes Bauer and Conny Bauer and all these guys, amazing players. But I don't know if they've done like really solo trombone records. Maybe Albert did, right?
Albert did, and also Conny Bauer did.
He did. Ah, okay.
Yeah, there's I don't know how many, maybe 2 or 3 solo records by Conny.
Oh wow, I have to check it out.
It didn't do as many as Albert Mangelsdorf, but
yeah. But how did you approach the new one? Like because playing solo guitar, solo piano, it's kind of it's normal. But solo trombone, I think it's quite scary. Like in a way, how did you consider consider starting with this record with Bright Lights?
Well, actually, I had the plan to record something a solo trombone record for many years, and also because I'm German, and there's this German solo trombone tradition, and all that. I was also sometimes asked, like, so how about it? And I always said, well, at some point I'm going to do it, but then I don't know. I mean, I hesitated for several reasons. I mean, one big part was that I was busy with my bands, and there was always something coming up, or like if you have a good dynamic in a band, you go like, oh, we should do a new record, or there's some gigs coming up, or all these things that keep you busy, and you don't have the patience, the time, and the concentration to be by yourself and play trombone and compose on the trombone. It's quite, I have to say, for me, it was quite a different thing to compose just for the trombone than composing for a group. That was one. That was probably the biggest reason I didn't do it for many years. I didn't record a solo album, but also the fact that actually I became a musician because I like to be around people and I like to be around other musicians. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's a big part for me. Maybe it's also in the nature of you know, playing a brass instrument. You know, I grew up playing with people in ensembles, and you know, that feeling to make music with other people together and hang and you know all that. You know, I was like, well, if you play solo, if you go on tour being a solo player, you know, it's almost like being a businessman, a lonely business.
Yeah, true.
Of course, you know, you have that moment at night to be in the room with your audience, and of course that's the communication, and you know, afterwards there's something going on, but it's a different kind of feeling. It's maybe not so much related to, you know, having a family kind of thing. So you know, so my temptation also to do a solo thing wasn't that high because of that. And then the third reason was probably because, you know, the role models are so strong.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you know, I listen a lot to the solo recordings of Albert Mangelsdorff, a little bit to the solo recordings of Conny Bauer. I even played quite a few concerts with Conny Bauer. So, you know, I know that repertoire, I know what's possible, I know what they've been doing, and I'm totally influenced by that style also. So the question is, how, you know, how can I use it? Can I use it in my own way? Am I going to go against it, or am I going to go with it? And, you know, and all these little decisions, you know, to have references and being influenced. I mean, you know, you're a musician yourself. You know, everybody has references, and imitation is a thing which is very important when you're young.
So we
But
learn,
you have to somehow come up with some of your own things. And yeah, so that didn't make it easier either. So but then at some point, I mean, it was like, you know, in March, it was actually in the year, you know, when we had the 20th anniversary of my band Route 20. And you know, a long tour. I mean, we had two reserved periods in 2020, and the first one with like 18 gigs was canceled just like that the day before the tour.
Really?
Yeah, well, and then the second one actually happened in
Yeah,
September.
I saw that. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, it was a trip. It was a really, but I mean, we get to that later, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I said, you know, in the beginning, I was like, okay, if I don't want to get totally frustrated and just, you know, and lame and everything, and I have talked to friends of mine who told me like, oh yeah, you know, I haven't been playing. I had various periods of like 6 weeks where I wasn't playing.
Wow.
And you know, for me, I really didn't want to go into that, you know.
Yeah.
So, plus, you know, everybody, you know, I have 3 kids, you know, 5 people in the family, and everybody was home constantly.
Yeah.
So, and also my neighbors, they're all home constantly, you know, home office and all that. So there was March, and I said to myself, okay, if I'm not going to do it now, if I'm not going to do the solo repertoire now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
So and then I started, so I had a project, you know, so then I started improvising, writing things down, and you know, it wasn't like exclusively composing on the trombone. I also wrote some things down away from the instrument, and some stuff I wrote, like I checked with the pianos, not to be only like with the trombone.
Yeah.
Then actually I started, you know, practicing that kind of stuff in the basement, like in the heating room, because you know, I couldn't, in that room I'm now, like upstairs there's a neighbor, so they were home the whole time, so I couldn't practice there, I couldn't practice at home, you know. So I went to the heating room, which is, you know, that was okay. I had my little like room to, I mean, it was my room, but at least, you know, close the door, be by myself, and concentrate on solo things. So that, that helped me a lot through the first lockdown, and you know, like stay creative.
Yeah, but you mentioned Albert, let's say, and Connie, like, but I think you did like quite your own thing when I listened to it. I mean, you are using some of the techniques, but like what I really like about the record is that you kind of like those tunes like Lullaby, I think, and it's all about the melody when you play them, and you seem not to be scared of just playing like a beautiful melody on solo trombone, and I love that because it's so intimate. It's not like, wow, I have to show some amazing. I mean, you do show amazing chops and everything, but you know what I mean, right? Like,
absolutely. And it was definitely like a decision, like a conscious decision to do that, because I knew I was gonna, I mean, and maybe that was an advantage of like not recording for so many years, because you actually, like it kind of comes in waves, like, okay, maybe now, and then you start thinking about, and then you start thinking like, okay, what am I going to use and not, what am I not, where the traps, where you don't go into. And I knew I was going to, a couple of things I was trying to do. One was to actually compose real compositions and songs. I mean, I wanted song structures, and I wanted harmony, and I wanted rhythm. So, I mean, that by itself was a decision, because I mean, there's always the possibility to actually, and like about 15 years ago, that was the first time I actually played a solo concert with my own repertoire. I only took elements and improvised with it. I'm going to take that rhythm or that sound and just improvise. And the result was okay, but I wasn't really satisfied with it, because I like melody, I like structure, I like harmony. So I was like, okay, this is more like a showcase kind of thing, what you can do on the trombone, but I want to make, I want to be closer to the music. I mean, and music for me is also melody, not just structure. It's not just, like no pitch sounds or so. So I mean, that was, so I needed, and in order to play harmony, you can use the multiphonic. So you sing one note and you play one note. But and then I also thought, like, if isn't it also, to have a solo recording, it's great to be able to be a little bit more orchestral. But on the other hand, if you hide being, like a solo instrument, like solo brass or solo wind instrument, maybe that is also, you kind of like, actually to not hide it is a chance. You go like, okay, this is how the trombone sounds. This is my sound. And then you can focus. If you don't do any tricks, like no fast playing, no multiphonics, no effects, nothing, you have the chance to have the, to hear the pure sound of your instrument and the pure sound of the person playing. And that's why I put, this melody, Lullaby, in the first position of this record, because
I love that,
all the other stuff, it's there, but I wanted to make a statement, be like, okay, this is a solo trombone record. It means you will be listening to one instrument, mono. I mean, it's not mono, but it's almost mono, because it's just coming from one signal.
No, I love that, because it's like, Bill Frisell on guitar. He's one of the best guys, but he can play a G chord on guitar without fear that, oh shit, I cannot play a G chord. It's like, when I listen to this, just like, sometimes, listening to free improvisations, like, it can get boring to me. I mean, I do a lot of free stuff, but, like playing solo on trombone, like, I can imagine, like, like 2 minutes of, it's cool.
It's very cool.
Yes. It's very cool, but I even love this more, because it's so, like you said, you actually hear how beautiful the sound of the instrument is. And
and
it's
also,
so nice what you did. So.
I'm not totally conservative. I'm not against free improvisation.
Sure.
Against dissonance and all that stuff. But to be honest, I mean, occasionally I listen to avant-garde music, but it's maybe, I don't know, it's a really small portion. It's maybe 5%.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, why, if I'm, as much as I like playing free, and as I much like playing effects, all that stuff, why should other people behave in a different, or like different things than me? How can I expect other people to dig, a solo trombone record of what you remember?
Yeah, no, for instance, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, as much, it's interesting, but so that why, I said to myself, I want something that is, that people want to put on and want to listen to. It's not like, because the other thing is, sometimes you check it out, I mean, we musicians have that very often, right? Like, okay, go check it out, and then you listen to it once, you go like, that's amazing, I have checked it out. I want the longer I play, I want to make records where people re-listen to. They like, oh, that is a record I want to listen to again. That's my goal. And without being, totally like conservative.
No, but I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like that part, like free stuff can be just one part of the whole concept of the whole record, not the whole record like that. And I think that's what you did in a way also. So I love that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
But you mentioned like a tour that you guys did with Route 70. I saw like footage from Leipzig. I think you guys recorded in September.
Yeah, that was actually September. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
burning.
What happened was, the first period was mid-March, like started on March 12th, I believe, or 13th, and went on until like beginning of April. And okay, and then things like and we were all people, like, actually I said to the band, hey, for 2009, let's not play any tours in 2019, and we only tours because I mean, like, 2 people live in New York, one lives in Belgrade, and one lives in Zurich, so we can't really do one gig. I mean, we've also done that, but it's even ecologically, it's not cool. I mean, but and also, then of course, the money is
logistics, and everything,
super expensive. So anyway, so we do these tours, and I said, well, let's save the energy, let's not play in 2019, let's save the energy and play as many gigs as we can in 2020, when we have the 20th anniversary. So we were prepared to, and then the whole, and then shit hit the fan, and and then on Wednesday, or in that week of the 12th, we were like in touch. We were like, okay, what's, is it going to be possible? And so and then in the morning, I think it was on a Thursday morning, I woke up, I listened to the news, and it was like, okay, Europeans cannot, or people coming from Europe cannot enter the US states anymore. The countries are, the borders are locked, they're closed. So I said to myself, well, then it's over, because like Jochen and Matt, they can't go back to their families. So and then we said, okay, we probably have to cancel. Then there was a note from them like, okay, we have US passports, we can still come back to the US. And and then we had to like find, we didn't know what's going on, because I mean the gigs were still confirmed. We didn't have canceled gigs, but I mean, you could see it come, this giant wave, So actually about 3 hours before, I think it was Thursday afternoon, I mean, I had a phone call with Jochen and Matt at 3 p.m., which was about 3 hours before their flight left from New York to Europe. And we said, well, we can't do it, because, we don't know if the gigs are going to be happening. B, if they're not happening, or maybe some gigs will be happening and some not. So we have this, we have one gig 3 days off,
No,
gig.
yeah,
It's impossible to do. Usually we play every day or almost every day. So and also, you know, the insecurity, are you going to be locked in Europe, or are you going to be able to go back to your family? So we canceled, and you know, that night, you know, all the gigs like one by one got canceled, you know. So it was the right decision to do that. So we would not have been able to play the tour. So anyway, so then we were trying to move. I mean, we had in September, we had like about 5 confirmed gigs in March. So we, you know, we kept on working on this and tried to, you know, pull as many concerts over to September. You know, back then we were like, okay, probably in September it's going to be over.
Yeah.
With, or kind of over.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we managed to, I don't know, out of the 18 gigs, maybe we managed to take over maybe like 8 gigs
Oh,
or
that's still
something.
amazing. Yeah.
So in September we had another nice tour of something like 15 concerts. And then the problem was, you know, I mean, things started to reopen, but you know, it was forbidden for people from the US to enter Germany or enter Europe.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I mean, you know, all that work, and you know how much work it is to put a tour together. It's like, and plus, you know, our anniversary and we haven't been playing for such a long time. It was so bad. So actually I asked everyone, I searched the internet, you know, I called, I mean, I don't know how many hours I spent on the phone trying to reach the authorities, be like, okay, what can we do? Is there any exception, you know? And so I read, you know, all these things you can read on the internet. So at some point I got in touch with the person who's running the music department at the Goethe Institute, which is like an international association to support musicians in Germany or German musicians. So he said, well, you know, let me ask around, you know, because, and then he wrote me an email, like, yeah, well, I mean, we had a similar case, and you can try to get a permit after, you know, this and this law at the German police. And I was like, okay, this is the last branch I can hold on to, you know. So I wrote an email, like, just to find you know, to whom you can do that. So I replaced my request. You know, I said, okay, this is, you know, anniversary. You know, there's money involved. There's an agency involved. There's you know, clubs involved. There's, you know, all the musicians, and you know, it's going to be pretty bad not to be able to do it. And then I found the contact of the German police. I wrote an email. I got an email back from a real person. I mean, I couldn't believe it. You know, Jochen, you know what Jochen said to me? He said to me, "That's amazing. You're in touch with, you know, like a police person from the, you know, the German police." And he's even replying to your emails, you know. And I was in touch with him. You know what? Sometimes my friends don't even reply to emails. So I was in touch with that guy, and he said, yes, in your case, it's possible. You need a negative corona test. I mean, you're from the States. A, B, you need proof that you're working. C, you know, so have your agencies,
contracts or whatever,
you know, which you can present, and you know, and just like, and when you enter the country, when you enter Germany, you have to present it to the authorities, to the border control, and, you know, explain to them. And, you know, and also, and that was really nice. He said to me, send me the flight details so I can tell my colleagues in advance that these people.
Wow.
Yeah, that was amazing. And then, you know, then of course you had weeks of the insecurity, is like, is anybody of us gonna get corona? And do we have to go to quarantine because we're in touch with the person who has corona? Is the flight going to be canceled? So in the end, I think I was never so nervous before. So they they managed to go on the plane. The plane was like, I think just a third filled with just a few people. And then they landed in Frankfurt. took the train actually to Switzerland, which was also a little bit dodgy because officially you couldn't enter Switzerland coming from the US, but you could go to Germany. And then,
okay.
So then I got really paranoid that they get checked on the border between Germany and Switzerland. Later, I found out that the Swiss authorities, with all these things, like, they make exceptions, like, oh, you're a working, traveling musicians, and you have a negative test, blah, blah.
Okay.
So that the test thing was also, like you needed a negative test, which wasn't older than 48 hours, which means you needed a doctor or like hospital that can really guarantee you to get the results in time. So they came, and I was like so happy. We played the whole tour, and what we did is, of course, the seating was really limited. These places that fit maybe 120 people, were allowed maybe 30, 40 people. So I mean, but what we did in some places, like in some places we played one night but 2 shows. In some places we played even 2 nights and 2 shows.
Oh wow!
Like, we played 4 shows in two days.
Wow!
So we did reach some people, and it was nice. So one of the gigs we did is the one that was actually it was in Leipzig, and we streamed, and they gave me the video. So I thought, like, this is pretty much how we played. I figured maybe it's a nice thing to put it online to show what we've been doing, because it's like a sum up of what we've been doing the last 20 years. Because I didn't want to do a new album then. I said to myself, I want to put all our work together in one, like anniversary box. DVDs and all the videos and all the print music, like the sheet music, all in there, and that was actually a lot of work.
I can imagine.
I said, I mean, we've been doing new songs, new repertoires, so so much stuff. So maybe this is the time to kind of like go back, reflect what we've been doing, and that's why I put together this anniversary box. And happy we played at least this one tour in 2020, and that's the story behind this.
Man, it's like it's already I can't imagine, because setting up a tour, like you said, and being a band leader, it's fun, but it's so stressful. Like you're hoping everything will go okay, and and then now with all this, what you mentioned, I can't just. I'm just like imagining me in that role. I'd be like, oh,
Exactly. And I was so paranoid that even my, like Jochen Rueckert, he's like a total perfectionist, not just in his playing, but also. So even him, he said, maybe, dude, man, maybe you have now. I think you're over exaggerating, because the thing is, I had a gig like mid-August in Hamburg. And coming from Switzerland, which then I think it wasn't considered a risk.
It was a little bit better,
But so I stayed in the hotel of the Philharmonie, and I had to sign a thing that said that I'm not coming from a risk area. So I said to the lady, "Well, what if I would?" And then she said, well, "Then you couldn't live here, you couldn't stay here." I was like, okay. So I mean, that was another thing. I was like, okay, what is going to happen with Matt and Jochen? They have a U.S. passport, but they also have Matt has a New Zealand passport because in New Zealand, Jochen has a German passport also, and you have 2 passports. So I was like, oh my God, okay, you need a German phone. You need, don't use your U.S. passport, because I was paranoid that they've been like, they get trouble with the local authorities, because the country thing was okay. I had a permit, that was okay, but you never know. And then you go to some town and they tell you, like, what the fuck are you doing here? So and I can totally agree to this. Being on the road, I mean, and I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't have the money to pay a road manager or something.
No, me neither. No, it's me. When I do it, it's me.
I have an agent, okay, that's a good thing. But then on the road, it's on me that everything works. If the train is late, it's on me to find a solution. And then with this thing on top.
No, it's like.
I'm very happy. It's one for the books.
Yeah, definitely a story like to tell. It's anyway. But Nils, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned 20th anniversary of Route 70, and I think I have like 7 or 6 albums of that group. Like when you started already so early, there was this platform, and I downloaded, like you pay for it, like you paid like a 30 euro subscription. You could download 10 albums per month. And I think I did, started discovering the scene, and I slowly then listened to everything that you did. And you kept it fresh for such a long time, also like through these conceptual albums in between. But I wanted to ask you, first of all, how did you form that group? Like, how did this group come together? And how do you keep it fresh as a band leader? Like this, basically it's the same 4 people in this band. Yeah. How to keep it fresh over 20 years, I've spoken to Paul McCandless of Oregon, and they played together for 50 years with Ralph Downer, let's say, or, many other guys. Like, how do you...
What did he say?
Yeah, well, they had some changes. I mean, Colin Walcott died, and then they got Trilo Gurtu in between and all these guys. So that kind of helped, but they had changes of the bass player. But he said, like, for them, it was fun to add for an album, I don't know, Alvin Jones in the 70s, or they added someone like that, and then it's still, they kind of found their idea. That's what he said, like, get to know each other, that it's such a nice thing musically and personally, of course. So,
I guess. I think that, there's several strategies or reasons why this group is still together. One big part is definitely that we don't constantly play. I mean, if you like, if you have a real successful group, meaning a group that plays, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 concerts every year, I think it's more difficult.
Can be tricky, yeah.
Yes, because you get, I mean, one thing is like, that might make it easier because everybody then depends on this group. So everybody wants, like, they want to keep the group because they depend on the money coming in with that group. On the other hand, knowing our species, jazz musicians, I mean, most people I work with, they're such individualists.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a fuck. If they don't like it, they just drop out. They just leave the band. They don't. I mean, I've seen people dropping out of the most, like at the peak of money and gig wise, at the peak of just going, I can't handle it, they leave. So I mean, that's definitely, it's not something you can count on, that you have work, people will they want to. So I mean, and well, myself, I'm a big fan of doing different, like, various things, like also I never, as much as I'm mostly doing now, most of my own music, I remain being also sometimes a sideman, or like playing with other groups, or being like a special guest with other people. This is for 2 reasons. One is, of course, it's like it's a situation where you can work and make money, but also it's so interesting and inspiring to meet other people, to be challenged, I mean, get the music you get sent, and then you're like, okay, let's, like, we have a gig, and we expect you to nail it.
Sure.
To give your sound to it. So anyway, so with the group thing, it was never my plan to actually have one group and be, to be working only with this one band. So, that gives every individual player a lot of freedom, because, everyone has their own thing, or, they've been playing with many people, I mean, Jochen at some point started his own band, which he does really successfully, I mean, they're working a lot. not now, of course.
Yeah, but yeah, I love that band. Yeah,
That is, you know, like the number one, you know, bass player called for, you know, really famous jazz players.
yeah,
Hayden Chisholm, you know, he has like many other projects, also including some work with like artists, not out of, you know, out of the music scene,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so, and composing and all that. So I mean, I think that's one of the secrets, you know, like everybody, they, you know, they do their thing, they do various things, and then when we get together, it's like coming together as a, you know, family kind of thing. Although, and that's another really important thing, that which a lot of band leaders, you know, they expect the other people to be part of their family, meaning that, you know, they expect like they can say where to go, like music wise, and also maybe business wise, and but at the same time they expect to everyone to go in the same direction and think in the same direction, you know, this kind of thing, like, you know, I'm doing all the work, I'm putting in, and now I expect you to, you know, to be on the same level, or, you know, mindset.
Yeah.
And that's nothing I would do. I'm going like a little bit different. I mean, I'm not expecting anything from them. I want them to be wanting to be playing with this group.
Yeah,
If that,
yeah.
you know, that's the main thing. Like if they don't want to play in this group, I'm the last one who's trying to convince them to do this, you know. And so I think it's very important to pay attention to like a group dynamic, and be like, okay, what is working, like, you know, like what musical situations are
Yeah.
work in a certain setup, and, you know, where are the problems, and how can I focus on the strength of a group and
Yeah.
of every individual player, you know, and avoid situations where they don't feel comfortable with, you know. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, you know, and I'm not going to expect them to play whatever I put in front of them. You know, it's more like, you know, I have a certain musical idea, and that I have to kind of, before I present it to them, I have to ask myself, is that going to work with these individual
Yeah.
players? And, you know, what is their sound, and how can I use their sound for my music? And, you know, and then also, you know, the whole business thing is like, you know, I'm, as much as it looks from the outside, we are friends, yes, but I mean, you know,
Sure.
the mix, and we, you know, the thing, yeah, which it's a big problem with the musicians. Of course, musicians are, I mean, most musicians I know, they're great people, I love them, and you become friends. You are friends. Nevertheless, you're a professional musician. You need money,
Yeah.
and, you know, and then, you know,
Know what you
so
mean.
I never, you know, the thing is, what I'm not doing, I don't expect them to do anything that they don't want to do. I'm not going, oh, can't you, you know, can't you play for less?
Yeah.
Can't you? I'm going like, okay, what is the minimum? You know,
Yeah.
what do you think is a decent fee? You know, and like, and also, and the whole thing being on the road, you know, what do you think is a decent accommodation, decent food, decent, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm taking these things quite seriously, you know, organization of the gigs, you know, having a good treatment, and then also having the music prepared, and, you know, and also me being on top of the music, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm preparing myself to be able to play everything I'm writing, because that's also often a problem. And, you know, and these things are highly appreciated by professional musicians.
Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
not just like, you know, oh yeah, we're such big friends, and you get together, and money doesn't play a role. It's not like this, you know.
No, it's not.
It's
Yeah.
maybe it's, you know, maybe it's like, if you are a group for such a long time and you are friends, you know, because Hayden, and you asked me like about the history of the band. Hayden and Matt, they know each other since they're like 16 or 15, even in back from New
New
Zealand.
Zealand. Yeah.
I met Hayden and Jochen in Cologne in 94. So it's
Wow.
really, you know, and then the group was founded in 2000. You know, we go way back.
Way
So
back,
I mean,
yeah.
we are friends, but, you know, there's still the business side, and I'm taking that really seriously. And also then, and, you know, what's really important is, you have to feel when there's a problem in the band, psychological problems, like we also had talks, at some point it was like, okay, we've been playing for so many years for the same fee, why is it not moving?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, it's difficult,
Yep.
And then, I think Hayden said to me like, well, I mean, if you, it's also, isn't it also a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy? If you say like, it's not going to change, it will not change,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we've been playing since then a little less and trying to get a bit better feet. But yeah, it's still very difficult. It's like, it's always like on the edge because of all the trouble.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing you have to pay attention to is when the routine comes, when the people are bored or they, to have a certain routine is a good thing. To have a repetition is a good thing because you feel at home and the music. I'm not a big fan of always coming like new premiere. I write a set of tunes and then we play that for 2-3 years, so because then then the music grows, but then at some point you feel like, okay, it becomes some kind of a stick, okay, he does this, and then you have to really come up with a new repertoire because otherwise it becomes such a routine, and nobody wants to see or hear like routine and bored musicians on stage. Let me quote Connie Bauer. He said, most of the time you go to concerts and see your colleagues at work.
That would be the worst. Yeah,
exactly. And one strategy to avoid that is to have once in a while new repertoire, and that repertoire has to, I believe, has to have some risks, because otherwise, if you only take the things that have been working, like, okay, that was great, let's redo this in a different format or something. You might be able to do that, and actually, to be honest, this kind of things, that it comes automatically, so I mean, I'm not saying, nobody actually can come up with new things all the time.
Yeah, sure.
But you can, and that's also a reason why, concentrate on certain subjects or like conceptual things help me, like, okay, now I'm going to go this direction, and it helps me to, and I'm fully going this way, and if I fail, it's at least I have tried it, and if it works, I've proven that it works, like, and with many things, like with like musical things, but also recording things, and a way to work. And so I'm always like thinking about how like, where's the dynamic where the band goes. Like, I even talk to the musicians, hey, for the next album, do you have any preferences, things you want to do? I've not done that, but for the album Luxury Habits, I talked to Jochen, our drummer, and and he said, well, we've been recording before that quite a few albums with like easy structures, and how about doing something more adventurous rhythmically, like going like, and which is some kind of a thing we had been doing before
all the time,
like,
in the beginning.
But so he said like, hey, let's risk it. So and then I said to myself, yeah, okay, so cool, that's that's exactly what you want motivated musicians who put their own thoughts into these things, and then of course my role is to come up with music and that features that idea, and all, then it's not with every tune, but some tunes on an album or like on a repertoire always have that thing where I'm not sure if it's going to work. On the Luxury Habits thing, it's this tune called Piazza, which is really static in a way, and it's I was a little bit afraid that it's not it's not lively. On the other hand, I actually wanted that static thing, so I didn't know if it would work. I mean, but like that actually makes the difference. That makes all the difference. Yeah, to risk things, and and the band sound will remain anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not thinking in styles. I'm not saying like, now we're gonna make a salsa recording. Now we're gonna make a
Sure.
I'm more like
Christmas album.
Yeah. Well, even that, I mean, that would be something if I would make a Christmas.
It's risky. It's risky.
It's totally risky.
Very
but
risky.
then I would start thinking like, hey, actually, what does it mean to make a Christmas album? Where are the traps again? I mean, for me, the traps would be like, to be too cheesy, and actually just cover cheesy songs that have been have been done a million times. But I mean, the actual thought of like making a Christmas album, why not? Maybe
I so hear you guys. Just imagine.
maybe you can prove, I mean, then you go like, if you don't think in terms of style, like Christmas album, you just go like, okay, so what you need is like some kind of deep, mellow music, and maybe you can come up with something that is
absolutely,
and just call it Christmas album, whatever. But
you could fuck it up. Imagine, like, let's say Jingle Bells. I would hear you with Hayden playing you these counterpoint lines, like, I don't know, have it in 7, like, dun 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 dun, and Jochen, like.
Oh yeah, and that is, it's nice you mentioned this, because I mean, these kind of things happen to me quite frequently. That I came up with ideas, I thought they were hip, and then the band would like, I mean, persiflage make on these things, like they take a piss out of like songs I wrote, and I was like, oh my god, this is stuff. And so I mean, there were also some songs the band kind of refused to play. I mean, they never said like, oh, this is bullshit, we're not gonna play it, but I mean, you felt like they're not feeling it. So I mean, then just throw it away, or play with some other people. So yeah.
But were you like that in the beginning, correct? You remember, let's say, your first tour with Route 70, or like your first tours as a leader, me now, I know now these things also, after doing this for 25 years, but like in the beginning, I remember I didn't know about this accommodation stuff that's so well, and money, and you learn through the way. How was your learning process with, let's say, touring or learning these things?
It was quite terrible, and I did all the mistakes, and
okay.
I did all the mistakes. Like, in 1992, I moved to New York to study at the New School, and at the end of and I stayed in New York for 2 years only. But at the end of the 2 years, I said to myself, I want to, somehow, like, I want to record an album and be like, to have some kind of an ending point or result, or like maybe it's like for me it was a milestone, I'd say, like, okay, I've been studying, I've been working really hard on the instrument, writing music, and why not try, so I went to the studio with a group I put together. It was Owen Howard on drums, Doug Weiss on bass, Brad Shepik on guitar, and Kenny Werner on piano, a quintet. So then I moved back to Germany, and I was like, yeah, of course, we're gonna tour. I'm gonna bring the band over to and then I was confronted with all these things, like, how much money this costs, having low fees in clubs, and I had no connection, I had no knowledge about, so I managed to put together like maybe 5 to 7 concerts, and then there was one gig which, we did it in some bar, and I had to leave. Like, I was like, the saving money thing. Like, I was like, okay, this was in Düsseldorf. I was living in Cologne at that time. I said, well, I said to my band, okay, I'm gonna go home, and you're gonna be treated by the promoter.
I did the same things, man.
And the promoter said, like, yeah, no problem. They can sleep over at my place.
Yeah.
So I mean, so he put like he didn't have separate rooms. He didn't have, so they ended up in his apartment, and it was a terrible night, and I felt so embarrassed and sorry. So I mean, that was one of the first moments where I realized, okay, this is not working out. This is not. Then I guess like that I started booking more professionally and everything, and actually it went pretty well, but there were conflicts within the band, like between people, and there was another like really important moment. I realized that just to have good players together in the band doesn't make a good band. I mean, even like I think sometimes even the results are very good, but as what I mentioned in the beginning, I like to be around people and I like to hang out, and so and I want to have a good atmosphere in the band.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, actually over years I had conflicts, in my first quartet, and then like I had to replace people because it wasn't working out. And then there was also a big part why I formed Brood 70, and even the name, because I said to myself, well, as cool as this quartet is music-wise, it's not going the direction I want to go to. I want to have real bands with like a real band spirit.
Your peers kind of, or
and people of the same kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's necessary to have the same age. In that case, it kind of is. I'm 2.5 years older than the others, or 3. It's not the exact same age, but to be at the kind of similar level, or part in life, or just so and I think so that was also a mistake I made. I by now I tell people, if they can, they should actually play with people of their same age, of it doesn't have to be their neighbors, it doesn't have to be their friends. They have to be people who you relate to, and so you can grow as a group, and all this star thing, like featuring da da da, and it's a little that's, I'd say that was one of the bigger mistakes I made. On the other hand, who knows, I mean, you have to make mistakes, you have to find out what's your way. So I mean, you cannot avoid, when I'm telling people now, like, hey, do you really need a special guest? Maybe you don't, maybe just go with the band you have. Maybe a special guest will help them to get more known or something. So but for me, it was definitely growing out of that. I mean, getting more professional with the organization, and growing into this band thing where the band really wants to play together, and it's not just
No, it makes sense. It's like what you're saying, it's totally me. Like also in the beginning, I had Mark Turner here and Matt Brewer on one tour, and we put them in the same room. Like I didn't know what I'm doing in the beginning, and of course, like that was not happening, that. But then I felt so bad also, like like shit. Yeah, I don't know these things. No one. There's no book like which says how to become a band leader in jazz or whatever.
No, it's actually. But I mean, maybe. I mean, we are the generation that have studied jazz. I guess you studied jazz somewhere.
No, I didn't. I'm self-taught. Like
Okay. But I mean, most of
the guys did.
I play with. They have been to a music conservatory or university, and and now what I see is like these schools, they get more and more professional, and they're looking for perfection in many ways, not just in sometimes too much, sometimes like too much on like how to, build an audience, how to get into the market, how to, instead like, how can you fucking play your instrument well and be a good musician? So much, but I mean, I don't know, maybe the generation of the people who are now, around 20, maybe they will not do these mistakes we have been doing. Maybe not.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, what I see is there's a lot of like community things, like, almost like sometimes a little bit like hippie style. I see bands and like I see musicians not paying their colleagues. I'm a little bit skeptical with that, because I play in one collective band myself, the Vertigo Trombone Quartet. And, if you take all the decisions together, if it's really totally democratic, then this is cool. But I mean, I've also been in situations where the band leader considered it to be like a collective, but nevertheless he would like take all the decisions. And that's so I mean, my model is like, I want to take, I'm okay taking the responsibility. I'm okay paying the musicians, because that gives me also more freedom to decide. It gives me more freedom to take a low budget gig. It's my problem. But maybe because sometimes, if you have to discuss also like artistic decisions, are not always the best artistic decisions are not always the democratic decisions, because if you decide like 4 people, they might say like, oh, do we really have to do this? Do we really like, do we have to spend so much money on this studio? Why don't we, like, I have a friend who has also, and then, all these extremes decisions I'm always taking wouldn't be possible, so, for me, but I mean, the mistakes, I guess you have to allow everyone to make mistakes.
No, sure.
Say, I'm so embarrassed that for all these things that happened, and like, because I was so naive.
But you learn, I guess, that's how we learn. But Nils, I wanted to ask you one more thing about, you did like the solo record now and the Route 70 box. And it's all under your own label. And it's, you've started this quite a long time ago. Like, I think I read like 10 years ago, almost like, or
10 years ago.
And, many people now in jazz have, from Dave Douglas, Greenleaf, and Dave Holland, like even these huge superstars are doing this now. I wanted to ask you, nowadays it's quite easy in a way because we have Bandcamp and all these other platforms. How do you see the situation of industry right now regarding the issuing an album? I mean, in the past it was like, when you put out an album, it was like a big thing in a way, now it's just become like almost like an identity card where you are in February, at least, or something you did creatively to keep active. How is your standpoint on this, having your own label regarding artistic freedom and business-wise also? I mean, how do you see these two things?
Well, I mean, I founded the label because I didn't really, I mean, I'd say I didn't have a choice, but of course you always have other choices. But I mean, I made records for many different labels over years, and it was always like, okay, spending all the money, trying to go around shopping, be like, hey, don't you want to release it, and then get shitty deals, and basically only. I'm not saying the record companies, they got rich with my records, but I mean, they had a business running, making, like, releasing these records. I didn't have a business running making these records. It was more like an artistic statement, and it was my business was playing live. Okay, so I did that for many years. Actually, my first record came out in '94, and I continued until 2010, like releasing, and at times I had some kind of a record deal. I mean, but not, but also that, with I released many albums on Enja.
Yeah.
And then Enja has there are two different Enjas. One was the first one I worked with was Matthias Winkelmann, and the second one Horst Weber, or then Werner Aldinger, who took over this thing. And then I released and had a contract with the label from Shot Music called Intuition.
Oh yeah.
And they then they fired both of their label managers. And then I had a contract with them, and I called them. I said, like, hey, what's going on? Are you still interested in me making more records for you? And they said, oh, we love your music, and it's great, blah 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 blah. But we can't keep the deal we have with you, which was, it was pretty shitty, like I mean, I could never, it was no chance I could like finance these recording sessions with the money I got from them. It was no way. I got a little bit of money. I mean, it was more, it was less painful than totally painful.
Yeah. Okay.
So then I said to myself, okay, now I should make a move. Like, what am I going to do? So I actually asked the guy who got fired. I said, well, are you going to help me setting up a label? Because I didn't know anything. And, being also like in the beginning, what we talked about, being naive, at that time, I wasn't naive at all. I was taking risks because everybody's like, yeah, come on, man. You want to actually make a record company when the music industry is down? What are you doing? This is crazy. So, I mean, the thoughts I had is like, okay, what I was seeing is like two different strategies of musicians having their own label. One was releasing records and being a great musician and remaining a great musician, but being a bad businessman. I mean, friends having tons of CDs in their basement which are not sold. So that's maybe not a good option. And the other option was like, people who turned from being a musician into like totally business person. And also, then sometimes, it had effect on their music and on their playing. So that was also not, so I said to myself, I need a person who takes care of this. I mean, who has knowledge and takes care of. So I asked this guy, so I could convince this one guy, and I said to him, well, this is the money I can put in every month. Is it possible? I mean, if I give you this money, can you work for? I mean, he said yes. I can only do this and this many hours, which wasn't a lot, but at least I can run it. It's possible. So I mean, then the thing was born, and actually then I started releasing my own records, and then friends or other musicians they asked me like, hey, you have this label, do you also release other musicians? And I said, well, I'm not a real record company that has a budget and all that, which nowadays is anyway changed.
Sure.
And I cannot risk anything for other people. So I said, well, I have set up like a framework or like a business model. There's a guy working for the record company. There's one guy who's promoting the products, and there's a graphic designer, and these people need to be paid. And if I like your music, I can say yes, but you still have to. Then you have to invest all that money. You have to pay for the production, for the cover, for the label management, for the promotion, and the product. So I mean, that's quite a high sum. And because I'm a musician myself, and I like musicians, and I don't want to be like a tough business person. So I said, like, this is the model I can offer. What I can also offer is like all the income that the record company gains with your record, digitally, physically, and also, you know, like the royalties, and you get through, you know, the, if it's in Germany, GEMA, or
GEMA,
Suiza,
or whatever.
or I don't know what's in the name in Slovenia.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah, Sazas,
Yeah, SCAP in
yeah.
So I mean, you own the rights to your songs, and so everything, like, you pay a lot of money in the beginning, but then it's your product, and if you know, if you sell a lot of records, you can be lucky, and you know, that's, you know, I'm not taking, like, me personally, I'm not benefiting financially from the record company at all when other people do it. So and so then the thing started, and you know, you know, I could really plan the things. I could say, okay, now we're going to record, and this is, you know, and I also learned from the people I work with, like, how to do this, you know, how to do it really nicely, because that was a big disadvantage working with the other companies. They did good promotion. They didn't have a business plan. They didn't, you know, it was just like, yeah, we put it out, and then, you know, all these things I think we do now better, but it's also a big investment. So yeah, so I mean, now I have a lot of experience doing that, and I found out that of course some records, they make money, some records remain in minus, some records make the break even, and it heavily depends on the amount of gigs, and of course also the quality of gigs you're playing, which means if you, and that's maybe something a lot of musicians don't know, if you have a record out and the band is not playing, it's super difficult, sometimes even impossible. Like even records, or you know, even records I made which I consider to be good, where the band is not playing anymore, it's kind of over. You know, I mean, you know, it's always possible to go back. You know, like, okay, we're gonna, like, but I mean, I have a couple records where these groups are not playing anymore. I mean, one is the duo with Simon Nabatov. You know, we stopped working together. So this album Moods and Modes was sold in the times when we played, was okay, but now, you know, sold albums go down. I mean, it doesn't go down to zero, but it's like, it's really like, it's very little. Also with my septet, you know, and yeah. So I mean, so now I'm, you know, when people address me, or when they say like, okay, what is important, I say, well, you need to have a band that plays that exact repertoire, or at least parts of it live as many times as possible over a period of you know 2 or 3 years. And if you manage to do that, you have a good chance to actually, you know, break even and make another, because that's another thing, you know, I cannot constantly invest money into these things. Now, I mean, and that's now in the pandemic time, it's a big problem, because I have no gigs, so I have no fees. B, I have no gigs where I can sell CDs. And yeah, so I mean, actually, the you know, not, I have to say that the sold albums during the pandemic times actually went up, because I guess people, they still want to listen to new music, and so and they can't go to concerts, and a lot of, I mean, at least here in Switzerland, a lot of people have more money than before. Why? Because they're not traveling,
they're not spending money
on vacation, they're not going out to restaurants, which is very expensive here in Switzerland. They're not going to concerts, you know. So I mean, what to do with that money? Why not buy an album?
Sure.
For instance, with the Bright Lights album, I had like one online, like one streaming gig. That's it. I had no other physical, like, oh, that's not true. In July, I had one gig. But usually, you know, a new record, you have a few gigs here and there. But nevertheless, you know, that album was sold quite well. I mean, much better than I expected it to sell. But yeah, it's, how can I, coming back to your question, the whole situation, the business-wise, I'd say it's really hard work, and it's really difficult to finance an album if you do what I do, which is go to a great expensive studio, have the best people you can work with, pay the musicians. It's really, really difficult to finance, to break even with these albums. I have a little bit of help, maybe like a third of the budget from the Swiss state, which, yeah, I mean, and the other 2/3, or maybe it's 25%, and I get from funding, and the other stuff I have to gain through album sales. And and people always say, like, yeah, people don't buy CDs anymore. Well, yes, it's true.
Oh, gigs they do. I mean, right? I mean, that my experience is they really do.
Yeah. I mean, that's also, I mean, if maybe the total, if you consider the total, sales are really going down. But if you play a good concert, people like the music and they want to take something home, it's still an option. So for me to actually produce a physical product is still an important to finance these recordings. And the thing is, my business model is like, I don't depend on making a living on the records. That's important. Even I'm happy, and that's a big difference to a real record company. They need to make money. So here in this case, the people who make money with my records, and also the other people making records on N-Work Records, is the label manager, the promoter, and the graphic designer, and and the production plant, and all these people, these companies. But me personally, I don't make, I can't make a living running a record company. Now, if I would be like a business person, I could say like, oh, I have a great thing set up and we go strong after 10 years. Okay, pay this, and then I'm taking percentages on top of this. But I feel bad doing this, because I don't know, I'm a musician myself. I know how hard it is, and I don't want to. So and also these other people, they help me running the if they willing to pay this, they help the person who runs. Now there's a different person being the label manager, Imke Machura, and she's doing a great job, and she needs work, and if she has work, the whole thing works. And the one thing I got confronted with, actually yesterday, but also of course I following the whole music scene, is the idea of releasing an album, is that still something that you want to do, or do you want to release a few songs here and there constantly?
That's a good question.
I'm a big fan of an album and having a set of music. And it helps me concentrating on a project, and then like working for that project and finishing it. If you want to release EPs or a few songs here and there and put it on Spotify or whatever, it's a different kind of workflow. I
know what you mean.
I can't say if that is going to be the thing to do in the future. It has changed a lot already. It's like because like you have an album which is going to come out, and then you start doing some things around it, to prepare it, and you announce it, and all these things. That was definitely different like 20 years ago. You just released it and waited, but
funny, right?
I regret forming that the record company. And if I take everything together, like I think I also financially benefited through it, because then with the other record companies, I always had to give away royalties of my song. And I'm making way more money now with the GEMA than I used to before I had the label. So that's a big advantage. So if you count, actually, I never put that money into the label thing.
Yeah, sure. But
if you count that on top, it actually, I'm making a little bit of money. Yes.
Yeah. That's so cool. Nils, just one more question, not to take too much of your time, but you've done also so much work. You mentioned before, like as a sideman or as a collaborator. And I listened to the other day to one record you did with Andy Middleton, with Reinventing the World. That one with Kenny Wheeler on it.
Yeah, I have a great story.
I really wanted to. Kenny Wheeler is for me one of the three giants. I don't know. I'm such a huge fan of him. And how was that like for you playing with him? And how was that experience like?
I'm a huge fan of Kenny Wheeler, and I mean actually from pretty young age on, like the record GNU High.
Oh yeah. Sure.
I mean, I listened to that record so many times. Also, The Widow in the Window.
The Window, yeah, that's incredible.
And yeah, I think he's a genius. I mean, he's an amazing composer, and so actually, I have a few stories with him. Like first, like when I was in New York, I got into his music, and someone gave me charts from GNU High, so I brought it in to one ensemble. Buster Williams was leading, actually with well, I mean, it doesn't matter, but I mean, like some people went to that school that are really quite famous now in the jazz business. Okay. And also in that particular ensemble, there were like really some now celebrities. Yeah. So, but anyway, so I brought in the music, and I said, well, can we try that tune, from that record GNU High? And then Buster Williams was just like, I'm not concerned about Kenny Wheeler's music. So he wouldn't allow to play that song. Wow. These that was the first. I was like, oh my God, this is like, wow, this is pretty deep. I mean, it's and I had quite a few. In a way, it's honest and it's very straight. So that's the thing. That's one thing I like, but it's also a little bit closed-minded. Yeah. I mean, because Kenny Wheeler, come on. I mean, he is a great musician.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, say that he is not, maybe he's not, he's not Freddie Hubbard, but I mean, he in his own, and that's the whole beauty of it, I mean, that's what you want to have as a jazz musician, an individual style. But anyway, so then when I recorded my first album, someone gave me Kenny Wheeler's address. I don't know who, and I sent him the record because I was like proud, and I was like, okay, young musicians, like, you want to get in touch with people, and yeah, so he wrote me a letter, really nice letter. He was like, yeah, oh, beautiful record, I don't have any work for you though. Yeah. So I didn't expect anything. Yeah, so I mean, anyway, so I mean, what you do as a young musician, he came to Cologne to give a concert. I'm just like, at that time, I just wanted to be close to this person. Yeah, sure. But anyway, so I had a little chat with him. So at some point, Andy Middleton called me. He's like, hey, I'm doing a record, and do you want to be on it? And I said, yeah, great. And then Kenny Wheeler happened to be on that album, and we recorded the album in Cologne. And a funny story was that, I mean, Kenny Wheeler is this really shy, humble person. And, so we go back to, we do a take, we go back to the listening room, the control room, and listen. And then, the trumpet sound was kind of weird. And then Kenny Wheeler was like, I don't know, there's something wrong with the trumpet sound, and he didn't freak out. He didn't say like, hey, what the fuck, you can't. So, and then, it turned out that the sound engineer had turned the microphone towards in the wrong direction.
Oh no.
It was pretty embarrassing. So yeah, that was the story of that record you mentioned.
Amazing.
And yeah, and I never played a gig with Kenny Wheeler. I only that, you know, and I admire his music. And but I mean, yeah, what can I say? I think the most I learned from him is listening to his music.
Yeah.
Looking at the compositions, like, you know, how he would notate these chords.
Yeah.
And hearing him live on the recording session, and you know, and being close to him as a person. I think that's also something that inspired me. You know, such a humble person. You know, and you know, a great musician. And, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, have the different strategy than other people who are that famous and that great, and they just have a, you know, this kind of like attitude.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the story with Kenny Wheeler.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Thanks so much, Nils. I will.
You know, talking about having special guests.
Beautiful.
You know, like I don't know, Andy. He definitely benefited from having him on the record. It was a good choice.
Yeah,
he played beautiful album, and so it's nothing wrong with that, you know. But,
no, definitely, yeah. I mean, Andy did like that one with Ralph Downer, also that record, which is also beautiful, and you know, it's cool. I mean, yeah, but you know, I like what you do. That you have your own story and your own sound, and that's what it is.
Dr. Jazz.